A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to the weekly current affairs class. Now, this week we will be covering the previous week's current affairs. The important ones, yes, have been outlined, and one topic from the previous week's notes, that is with respect to the census, has also been included in this week's topic, and that is very important, and not exactly the same as it was in the last week's notes, but yes, some modifications, some changes, and some more extra information about the census has been included in this week's current affairs. So we'll see what topics we are going to cover. These are the topics which we are going to cover. The first topic is economic crisis in Pakistan. The situation is challenging over there presently. You might have seen in the news that people are filling the LPG gases in big balloons, and you might have seen videos circulating on the social media where people are fighting for food grains. So yes, the situation is bad over there. What is the situation like, and what are the factors that have caused this kind of situation? What impact does it have on India? Okay, that is very important, which we are going to discuss in this topic. Then India-China trade relationship. For the very first time, the trade deficit is basically imports minus exports, has crossed $100 billion with China. So we'll see a bit about our trade with China. Then new umbrella entity, which is going to be a replacement for National Payments Corporation of India, NPCI, a government entity which controls or which overlooks the online payment system in India. Okay. Then village defense committees. These kind of committees are being formed in the state of or the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and basically these are self-defense committees against the militants. We'll see there. Then overuse of fertilizers in India. Fertilizers are being overused because we are giving subsidies on them. So what is the status of fertilizers in India, and what is the impact of overuse of fertilizers? Then fertilizer subsidy is the next topic. Because of fertilizer subsidy, because of excessive fertilizer subsidy, the farmers are buying the fertilizers and irrationally applying those fertilizers on the field, which is impacting the soil health and the crop health and ultimately the human health. Then MV Ganga Vilas. Okay. This is a cruise ship which was inaugurated, and what is its route, what is its significance, and all we'll see. Okay. Then Parshuram Kund festival. This kind of festival is celebrated in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. It is also known as Kumbh of the Northeast. So we'll look into that, where it is celebrated on the banks of which river. Then this particular topic, delay in census. This was there in the last week also, but yes, some more information with respect to this topic we will be discussing in this lecture. Then Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. It was celebrated in Indore. What is Pravasi Bharatiya Divas? What is the significance of Pravasi Bharatiya Divas? What was the Prime Minister's address to all the Pravasi Bharatiyas, or to all the Indian diaspora, or to all the members who were there attending this Divas? This program happened in the city of Indore, Madhya Pradesh. So this was there. Then governor versus state government. This kind of dispute has surfaced in the state of Tamil Nadu, and in the recent past also this kind of issues have been surfaced. Actually, there was a speech which had to be delivered by the governor of Tamil Nadu, and that speech was in the form of addressing the State Legislative Assembly of Tamil Nadu. The governor missed out certain paragraphs from that speech according to his convenience, and which was protested by the government over there. The governor staged a walkout from the Legislative Assembly when the national anthem was being played. So this was a kind of protest which was shown by the governor. So as UPSC aspirants, we don't have to go into the masala ki bhai he staged a walkout during the national anthem and all, but yes, we have to go into the basics, that whether the governor is allowed to miss certain parts, whether it is legal or not, whether the governor is bound to read or to follow whatever is there in that speech. So all these we'll see, these questions I have addressed in this particular topic. Then Sakhalin-1 oil and gas field, it is in Russia, and we have regained 20% stake in that particular oil field. We'll see where it is and who else are the stakeholders in this oil and gas field. Then digital voter ID of the citizens of India. Now you can download your voter ID from the online portal and can use it for voting. If you go for voting, you don't have to carry that physical voter ID card with you. You can do it. Apart from voter ID card, what all other documents are accepted in e-format, that is PAN card and Aadhaar card, we'll also look into that. Then Rural Health Statistics Report, it is an annual report which is released, and it highlights the status of healthcare in the rural areas, and a bit of I would say component of urban health centers also is there in this report. So we'll see. So some good news, some bad news, both are there in this report. The good news is that the doctors have increased, the number of doctors have increased, and the bad news is the number of specialists, they are still very less. Okay. Voice of the Global South Summit. Now here we'll understand what the Global South means and what the Prime Minister's address in this particular summit was. Okay. So this is again important because we have the G20 presidency, and one of our agendas in G20 presidency is that we want to be a voice for the Global South. So there is this summit also for the Global South, the Voice of the Global South Summit. Okay. And finally, we will be discussing about minorities in India. There are two kinds of minorities, religious minorities as well as linguistic minorities. We will be particularly focusing on religious minorities. Okay. Now, these are the topics which we are going to cover this week. Okay. The class timings 9 to 10:30 the first leg, and 15 minutes break followed by the second leg, which is going to start from 10:45 and somewhere around 12 it will end. Now, after that we will be having the doubt session. Okay. In the doubt session, I will be taking the doubts from today's lecture. Apart from it, I will also be dealing with one very crucial question today, as we have started dealing with one question per session, and since the last two classes we are dealing with some important questions which will help you develop your approach, which will help you to make informed choices during your preparation. Because our job is not only to give you information, teach you, but actually shape your preparation so that you make informed choices, you make better choices. And the question today which we are going to discuss is that what is the importance of your optional subject and how to choose optional subject. Many of you might have chosen your optional subject, so don't be don't worry about it. Okay. If I say something which you did not consider, but anyways, it is up to you whether you want to take it or not, whatever we will be discussing. Okay. But yes, today's question will be that how important is the optional subject and how to choose the optional subject. Okay. So without wasting any time, we shall start. The first topic which we are going to discuss is the economic crisis in Pakistan. Pakistan, our beloved neighbor, our, I would say, very good, I would say, friend. This country is going through an economic crisis. Actually, in 2019, IMF gave a bailout package to Pakistan. That was the bailout package worth $6 billion. And in installments, this bailout package is coming to Pakistan. Recently, I also heard Shehbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, he was addressing the civil servants of Pakistan over there, who joined the Pakistan Civil Services or Pakistan Administrative Services. He was addressing those people, and he was very much, I would say, honest. He said that I went to Saudi Arabia, UAE, and I was very shameful for asking for loan from them. And I had to ask loan from them because I had no other option. Then he started, and then he went on saying that the situation in our country is not so good, the economy is not performing well, the inflation is at an all-time high, the forex reserves, they are dwindling, they are somewhere around $5 billion, $5 to $10 billion. This situation is very much alarming for Pakistan, especially on the economic front. And the base, I would say, understructure of any country is economy. If you have a strong economy, if you have a stable economy, then all the things fall into places. Your political structure will be stable, your security will be stable, people will be happy, people will be stable, everything will be okay. But if economy is in shambles, it will be a challenging situation for you. And such is the situation with Pakistan. Now, there are various videos which I saw on social media which were circulating, and those were not, I would say, unauthentic sources. Those were all authentic sources. I follow a page named as Brute India on Instagram or Facebook, you can follow. So they were showing, and in that people were fighting for food grains with each other because there are limited food grains. Although floods and all had come which had impacted the agricultural productivity, but that is one of the minor causes, one of the causes I can say for the current situation in Pakistan. Okay. So let's see. Recently, Pakistan announced a series of measures including closing all malls and markets by 8:30 p.m. Why it did this? In an attempt to conserve energy amid an economic crisis. There is a lot of shortage of energy over there. Also, the Pakistani administration is engaged in negotiations over the delayed release of $1.1 billion from the International Monetary Fund. Actually, I told you that International Monetary Fund in 2019 announced a $6 billion bailout package for Pakistan. But this $6 billion was not released all at once. Sara ka sara nahi mila to Pakistan. It is being released in installments, and Pakistan is currently under negotiations with IMF for the release of $1.1 billion out of this $6 billion package. And there is delayed release of that. It is negotiating with IMF. In 2019, Islamabad had secured a $6 billion bailout from the IMF, which we have discussed abhi. Now the crisis. In 2022, the country's foreign exchange reserves dwindled to a little of over $9 billion, and roughly they were equivalent to pay for 6 weeks of imports of Pakistan. They hit a low of $5.56 billion in January 2023, means this month. Now year on year inflation stood at 24.5%, and the inflation in India is somewhere around 7%. And 7% is also very much alarming for us because it is not under the permissible limits. The permissible limits set by RBI in India for inflation is 2 to 6%. It is not under this bracket since the last 3 quarters, and which was, which rang many alarm bells, and it was made compulsory for the Monetary Policy Committee in India to submit a report to the government because they failed successively for 3 quarters to meet the inflation targets. This we covered in the month of November. Now, for perishable food items, this number was 55.93, means almost 56% inflation is there for perishable food items. This is actually not I would say the situation which in which any country wants to be in. The country is struggling to cope with mounting debt, inflated energy import costs, dwindling forex reserves, global inflation, political instability, and a sustained drop in GDP growth. GDP has fallen, debt has increased by CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. When it started, it was somewhere around $46 billion loan it had to take, Pakistan had to take from China for building infrastructure projects. But now that has gone up to somewhere around $62 billion. So this debt has been increasing for Pakistan, and the projects in which this debt amount is invested, they are not working efficiently. They are called as white elephants in Pakistan. So this is a problem presently. They were very much short-sighted in their decisions. They were not very much concerned about the public at large over there, and this has caused the problems. Now there is a fear that Pakistan will be in a debt trap from China, because presently the glimpses or the hints of debt trap has started to emerge, because for clearing the existing debt they are taking more debts. They are not able to their capacity is not able to generate money so that they can clear their debts. What they are doing, they are taking more loan to clear their existing debts. So it is very much alarming for Pakistan. Such is the extent of the crisis. Now listen to this point carefully. Such is the extent of the crisis that the government auctioned a Pakistani embassy property in the US a few days ago. It was auctioned. So this is actually undesirable, but yes, we cannot help it. The factors responsible for the crisis. First is Pakistan's short-sighted policy decision. The present crisis is primarily attributed to Pakistan's policies decisions leading to extensive spending on non-development and economically unviable projects. Economically unviable projects are under CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, like Gwadar-Kashgar railway line. This is, has been created by using debts from China, but it is financially unviable. Pakistan relied massively on external borrowing rather than from domestic institutions, which added to its troubles. Now, CPEC projects, rollout of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor increased the debt burden on Pakistan. Notably, CPEC created a Chinese debt of $64 billion on Pakistan, and it was originally valued at $47 billion during 2014. The persistent fall in the Pakistani rupee against the US dollar, which makes the imports for Pakistan more costlier, because the Pakistani rupee is weakening as compared to dollar. It happens with India also, because when Indian rupee starts to weaken, our imports become costlier. Okay. So that is the situation. Next is role of international institutions. Actually, we all know, or those students who were taking the classes before, in October we covered that Pakistan was unlisted from the grey list of Financial Action Task Force, FATF. Now FATF is a global body which is responsible for checking on money laundering and terror financing. It releases various lists like the white list, black list and the grey list. In the white list there are those countries which have clean chit, means FATF has no doubt upon them that they are involved in financing terror or they are involved in money laundering. India is in white list. The other is black list, in which it is assured that money laundering is happening and the money is being utilized for terror financing. Like Iran is there, South Korea, or no, sorry, North Korea is there in that blacklist. And grey list is that list in which FATF is suspicious, unko shak hai that it is happening. In 2018-19, Pakistan was listed in the grey list. 2022 October, it was removed from the grey list. Now whenever you are in the grey list or the black list, it becomes difficult for you to access to international credit. It becomes difficult for you. Blacklist mein to you will not get any credit, okay, from World Bank or IMF. But in grey list if you are, then you'll face certain problems in getting access to the credit. Okay. So this was there, that low ranking by international rating agencies and grey listing of Pakistan and FATF kept foreign investors also away. Okay. In October 2022, Pakistan has been removed from the grey list after 4 years. The State Bank of Pakistan data suggests that the past 10 years, FDI inflows into Pakistan never exceeded 1% of GDP. The vicious cycle of seeking fresh loans and repaying old ones has led Pakistan into a notorious debt trap. Other reasons, current account deficit is there, fiscal deficit is there. Okay. Pakistan has one of the lowest trade to GDP ratios. Their exports are very less as compared to imports. The outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic further deteriorated their situation. Inflation in Pakistan touched its highest level in November 2021. This is primarily because of the global rise in crude oil prices, and they were not able to deal with the situation, and that is why. And India was successfully dealt with the situation because we were getting discounted oil from Russia, and that is why Imran Khan was the Prime Minister at that time. He was in awe of India's foreign policy. He said that India का रशिया से भी अच्छा है, USA से भी अच्छा है, foreign policy हो तो हमारे पड़ोसी मुल्क जैसी. This was the statement given by the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, that was Imran Khan. Okay. But Pakistan was not able to deal with the situation. A devastating flood that hit the nation in 2022 from June to October is another factor that has worsened the economic situation in the country. That was a natural calamity, and we also covered that, in which we covered topics like climate reparation. Okay. So these are the factors which are responsible for the economic situation in Pakistan. But yes, this particular slide, this is very important. What is the impact on India? Okay. What is the impact on India? Now, first topic here is on trade volume. Okay. We have very negligible trade with Pakistan. Actually, what happened in 2019, Pulwama attacks happened, and those Pulwama attacks were orchestrated by the Pakistan-based militant organizations in India, in which a convoy of the CRPF was blown up by some terrorists. The terrorists were based in the terrorists belonged to a terrorist outfit, I think Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed, which is based in the POK region. And we suspended all our trade with Pakistan, and whatever trade was coming from Pakistan to India, actually under WTO we cannot outrightly suspend. What we did was, we raised the import duty to 200% on whatever trade was coming from Pakistan to India, and that is the maximum permissible limit to which a country can raise its import duty, that is 200%, and we raised that. 200% means if 100 rupees product is coming from Pakistan, 200% duty is levied on it, means this product will be of 300 rupees when it comes to the Indian markets, means 3 times the cost. So the trade actually went down to zero almost. But yes, we kept on, we did not impose this kind of limit on certain essential items like pharmaceuticals or I would say agricultural items, because on humanitarian grounds we were supplying them pharmaceuticals and agricultural products, particularly during COVID. So a trade between India and Pakistan is very minuscule. It is very less. It is somewhere around it is less than $1 billion actually, somewhere around $1 billion. In 2016-17, when the trade was okay, when Pulwama was not there, it did not happen. It was somewhere around $2.3 billion. But after the Pulwama attacks, it virtually came down to zero. Okay. And low trade volume between the two countries is there. So on trade volume, there is no impact between the two countries. ठीक है, कुछ ऐसा फर्क ही नहीं पड़ा क्योंकि trade is very low between both the countries. ठीक है. Then increased presence of China. Now in this situation of adversity with Pakistan, China can make further inroads into Pakistan, which will strengthen their relationship, and this is going to be problematic for India. Actually, there is another viewpoint also on this point. That viewpoint is that maybe Pakistanis are getting this awareness that China is laying them into a debt trap. So it is better to, retract back from China. They can retract back from China also. But what if China is helping in such a way that it is not, laying a debt trap for Pakistan? Genuinely, if China wants to help. So that will create a problem for India. The present crisis in Pakistan will give space to increased presence of China in India's neighboring country. As per Pakistani's finance minister, Saudi Arabia and China are all set to shore up Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves before the end of January 2023. And I told you that Shehbaz Sharif was delivering a speech to the Pakistani Administrative Service officers, and in which he was saying that I had to ask loan from Saudi Arabia, and they've agreed to give loans to them. Okay. So this is there. Then threat to internal security. Economic crisis in Pakistan will provide a fertile ground for terrorism, because see, if people are having no jobs, there is a lot of inflation, there are increased chances that people will divert towards terrorism over there. And the terrorist outfits operating in the country are knowing the situation, are assessing the situation, and they may go on for an aggressive hiring spree. And that is going to be a problem for India, because those organizations, the target for those organizations is India. That might create a problem in India. So this is, I would say, one of the major impacts on India which is going to happen of the situation over there in Pakistan. This topic, impact on India, is the key highlight of this entire news piece which we are covering for us, for UPSC aspirants. The relationship between New Delhi and Islamabad has particularly deteriorated after the abrogation of Article 370. So it is like they are wanting to attack India more and more, and they have started doing so also, because we will see in another topic today, and that topic is with respect to militancy in Jammu and Kashmir. Okay. Hence the present crisis might create challenges for India's internal security. In Pakistan's I would say crisis might create a problem for India. Next is India's trade with China. Now China is one of the biggest or one of the largest trade partners of India. Actually, May-June 2022, last I would say year, or I would say 6 months ago, 6-7 months ago, USA surpassed China as the largest trading partner of India. But again, now reports are surfacing in which China has become India's largest trading partner again. So the first and second position, it is occupied by USA and China, we can say that. Presently it is China, we can say that if I consider the recent reports. Okay. If I consider the reports in May, June, it was USA which surpassed China. Okay. But we have a lot of problems with China. In 2020, when the Galwan Valley clashes happened, when the lockdown was there, COVID-19 lockdown was there. Now in that very year, 2020, our trade with China grew manifold. So problems will be there, but trade will also increase. The reason is that a lot of dependency, India has a lot of dependency on China. Lot of dependency means we are dependent for certain items from China. We are dependent on certain items for import from China. These certain items like the semiconductor chips, on which our I would say automobile industry was struggling. There was a lot of waiting if you had booked a vehicle, because people were saying that the semiconductor chips are not available. Why they are not available? Because they are coming from China, and China is, I don't know, purposely not sending it, or there was shortage in China also. Then we may be the pharmaceutical capital of the world. We are known to be the pharmaceutical capital of the world, but for producing those pharmaceutical items, the raw material is active pharmaceutical ingredient, API, and that API actually comes from China. Like for example, you eat that medicine, India's national medicine, we call it Dolo. In Dolo, the API is the salt, that is paracetamol. That is actually the API, paracetamol, active pharmaceutical ingredient. That is imported from China. A lot of rare earth minerals are imported from China. Okay. Now what we are doing, we are sending, we are exporting also to China. China is among the top 5 destinations for exports, to which India exports. But we are exporting raw materials to China, and China is making those raw materials into finished goods and then bombarding the Indian markets with those finished goods. The situation similarly was there when the Britishers were here. They were taking raw material from us, cotton, coal and all, converting that into finished goods in the factories there in England and bringing those goods back into India. Now when we export raw material, at that time we did not get the cost of that export raw material which the Britishers took away from us. Now we are getting the cost, we are getting paid for that raw material. This is the difference. But when we export raw material and when we get finished goods are considered more valuable, they are of high value as compared to the raw material. So automatically this deficit will be there. Now India-China trade relationship, okay. According to data released by the Chinese customs, the trade between India and China touched an all-time high of $135.98 billion in 2022, somewhere around $136 billion we can say. However, New Delhi's trade deficit with Beijing also crossed the $100 billion mark for the first time. Trade deficit is equal to import minus export. Okay. Trade is equal to exports plus imports. So exports plus imports is $136 billion, roughly $135.98 billion. That is trade. And trade deficit is shortfall. So we are importing more, trade deficit for India basically, we are importing more as compared to exporting. So imports minus exports, it crossed $100 billion for the very first time. Now bilateral trade, China is India's largest trading partner for the year 2022. This is claimed by the Chinese Customs Department. India's trade deficit concerns with China are two-pronged. The actual size of the deficit, which is large, that is $100 billion it is now. The imbalance has continuously been widening year after year, means this deficit has been increasing year after year. Now analysts have seen India's growing imports from China as both a worry, reflecting the continued dependence for a range of key goods. We are dependent upon China for key goods. To some extent, as a positive indicator for Indian economy importing more intermediate goods. We are importing more intermediate goods and making finished goods over here. But concern is that our dependency on China is there. Means if China wishes to stop importing to us, it can stop. And we will be able to do nothing. Okay. Now here is a table when I talk about bilateral trade. 2021 it was somewhere around 125 billion, 2022 135.98 billion, which we just saw. Percentage 8.4% increase. Now China's exports to India, it's were 97.59 billion, it is now 118.5 billion, 21.7% increase. India's exports to China 28.03 billion, they have reduced 17.48 billion. This is a cause of worry, and हमारे exports which have dropped down is another reason that why the trade deficit has widened. Now India's trade deficit $69.38 billion, $101.02 billion. India's major imports from China. Major imports from China is basically electronic goods, engineering goods, chemicals and related products, other manufactured goods and textiles. Then India's major exports to China, what we are exporting to China, engineering goods, agricultural and allied products, here raw material is there, ores and minerals, raw material is there, chemicals and related products, petroleum and crude products, again raw material is there. Okay. So raw materials we are exporting and we are getting finished goods in return. This is basically a cause of concern. Now reasons behind widening trade deficit. The first reason is gap between domestic production and demand. Let's suppose the demand is here of the products, means demand is high, but the domestic production is here. So this gap is there. We are not producing it domestically to meet the domestic demand. Domestic demand is way higher than the domestic production. So how this demand or how this gap is filled? This gap is filled by imports from China. So this is there, the gap between domestic production and demand, and that is why the Prime Minister keeps on saying that we need to make in India, we need to make in India, so that we can reduce our dependency on China. And if we start to make in India, we'll gain expertise from it, and then we can become a major export hub of the world like China is presently. Countries will start depending upon us like they are depending upon China. So we are lacking presently. We are not sufficient enough to meet our own demands. Exporting it is at the next level. So this particular gap has to be filled, and it has to be filled in a sustainable manner. Then export of raw material while importing finished goods. Finished goods, as I told you, are more valuable as compared to the raw material. So we are giving them raw material, they are making finished goods and then exporting it to us, which are more valuable. Okay. So this is basically one of the reasons. Then Indian pharmaceutical industry is heavily dependent on APIs from China. API, I already told you, active pharmaceutical ingredient. India's $42 billion pharmaceutical industry imports about 68% of its active pharmaceutical ingredients from China, and this is a very big figure, 68%. Other factors, a narrow basket of commodities, most primarily the Indian exports to China are primary items, basically, which are not so much valuable, agricultural products which are not so valuable. Market access impediments for most Indian agricultural products and competitive markets such as IT, ITES are also important other factors. Next is new umbrella entity. Now, new umbrella entity, we need to understand this. We have this National Payments Corporation of India, which is a government entity presently dealing with online payments, particularly UPI. Okay. And the online payments are getting increased year by year, day by day in India. The Prime Minister also highlighted about the digital transactions, the increase in digital transactions happening in India in the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas event also. Actually, we have witnessed a 500% increase in digital transactions in the last 1 year. Now you visit any small shopkeeper, that person will be having this QR code. It can be a QR code from any, I would say, company, Paytm, PhonePe, Google Pay, Bharat Pay, any. So number of digital transactions, they are increasing, and the government like NPCI is there, which facilitates the digital transactions in India. The RBI wants to create other such entities also, and it is named as the new umbrella entity. And the RBI is not like it wants to create only one alternate new umbrella entity. it is of the viewpoint that multiple new umbrella entities can be created, NUEs can be created, which will be facilitating online payments. But many of the players, big players like Tata and all, they submitted their proposal to the RBI, and RBI was not happy. RBI was not satisfied with any of the proposals, and that is why this was in news, new umbrella entity. So let's see. Recently, the Reserve Bank of India is said to have put on hold licensing of the new umbrella entity network. A fintech institution, it is going to be, fintech stands for financial and technical, planned as a rival to National Payments Corporation of India. Now, there are actually 6 groupings. Okay. Facebook, Google, Amazon, Flipkart, all have applied for NUE. All are there in one grouping or the other. Now you need to understand it that there are 6 groupings. Grouping is headed by an Indian company, like Tata is heading that grouping. Okay. And that may contain other players like foreign players like Flipkart, Amazon and all. Okay. So let's suppose Mahindra is heading another entity. It might have players, foreign players also, but the head has to be an Indian entity of that new umbrella entity. So the RBI was not satisfied with any of the NUE's, I would say, proposals. What are NUE? We will see. As envisaged by RBI, an NUE will be a non-profit entity that will set up, manage and operate new payment systems, especially in the retail space such as ATMs, white label point of sale machines, Aadhaar based payments and remittance services. The entity formed shall be a company incorporated in India under the Companies Act. Whatever the new umbrella entity will be formed, that will be registered under the Companies Act. Currently, the umbrella entity for providing retail payment system is NPCI only, and it is a non-profit entity owned by banks in India. It is owned by banks. The promoters. A promoter will hold at least 25% share. Promoter will be the head of that entity. Okay. Up to 40% shareholding can be there with the promoter. Only those entities that are owned and controlled by Indian citizens with at least 3 years of experience in the payment segment can become promoters of NUEs. Okay. Only Indians can become the promoters. Now, foreign investment, foreign companies can own a maximum of 25%. So, are teaming up with local players. Like for example, in a new umbrella entity, Tata is there. Tata is holding 40% of it. Now, there can be Facebook, there can be Google here, okay, and it can have 25% of the share maximum in that. Okay. Now, capital required according to the RBI guidelines, the entity will have a minimum paid up capital of rupees 500 crore with no single promoter group holding over 40% investment in the capital. Governance structure, the new entity will have to abide by corporate governance norms and the fit and proper criteria for persons to be appointed on the board should be followed. Next is village defense committees. To understand this topic, we should first understand the basic word, that is militancy. Okay. We have been using this word with respect to Jammu and Kashmir, and almost all of you might have heard about this term militancy. What is militancy mean? Okay. What does militancy mean? Look into it. Okay. You can write it also if you feel like. Militancy is an activity. Militancy is an activity in which militant ways are adopted for pursuing a political goal. Militant ways are adopted for pursuing a political goal. And when we talk about militancy in Jammu and Kashmir, then militancy in Jammu and Kashmir, the political goal is Azad Kashmir. This is the political goal of the militants. And for pursuing this political goal or for achieving this political goal, they are adopting militant ways, means violent ways. On the other hand, there is also another word which you need to be clear of, and that is insurgency. Insurgency. Okay. In the northeastern part of the country, northeastern states, you might have heard about this term insurgency in northeast. Okay. So, what does insurgency mean? Insurgency also is a militant way or an armed rebellion for pursuing a political goal. A militant way or an armed rebellion for pursuing a political goal and has considerable amount of public support for the same. This public support, this acceptance by the public for adopting those militant ways or for adopting that armed rebellion is the key difference between insurgency and militancy. Militancy, militant ways are adopted for pursuing a political goal. Insurgency, militant ways or armed rebellion is adopted for pursuing a political goal, and these militant ways or this armed rebellion has considerable amount of public support. This is the difference. Now, in some pockets in Jammu and Kashmir, where the local awam is in support of the militants a lot, then in those local pockets, we do not say that militancy is there, we say insurgency is there, because there is considerable amount of public support for those militant activities. Okay, now I hope this is clear. Okay. Now we come to our topic, village development committees. Now actually militants have recently killed 6 people in the 2 days in the villages of Jammu and Kashmir, and locals have demanded that they be provided with weapons to take on the attacks. Now when the locals are ready to fight with the militants, obviously insurgency is not there, militancy is there. Because if insurgency would have been there, those people would have been in support of the militants. So the people are demanding that give us weapons so that we can fight these militants. Because the security forces cannot be present everywhere all the time. There are certain limitations. But when they are coming to attack us, we at least can self-defend ourselves. So is it a new concept in Jammu and Kashmir that people will be given or people will be armed with I would say weapons for self-defense? No, it is not a new concept. It is not a new concept. Responding to the demands, Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha assured that people that they would get a village defense committee VDC on the lines of Doda district. Actually, Doda district in the past had these kind of committees, because in the Doda district, like in the mid 1990s, actually militancy in Jammu and Kashmir started in early 1900s, we can say, early 1990s we can say. Mid 1990s, Doda district was the hotbed of militancy, and in Doda district people were given arms and they formed village defense committees, and we can hence say that this is not a new concept for Jammu and Kashmir. Recently, Jammu and Kashmir, Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha said that village defense guards would be set up in the Union Territory. Now, the VDCs which were earlier there in the Doda district, which are presently also they are there, and now they are not there in Doda district only, they are there in other districts also. So the VDCs have been renamed as village defense guards after the recent demands. It is just a rename. There's a difference also, we'll see about the difference between VDC and VDGs. Now what is a VDC? The VDCs were first formed in the erstwhile Doda district. Now it is Kishtwar, Doda and Ramban districts. The administrative boundaries have been changed in mid 1990s as a force multiplier against militant attacks. The then J&K administration decided to provide residents of remote hilly villages with weapons and give them arms training to defend themselves. The new scheme to set up VDGs, village defense guards, in vulnerable areas of J&K was approved by the Union Ministry of Home Affairs in March 2022. In March 2022, Union Ministry of Home Affairs already had approved it कि VDGs should be set up. Like a VDC member, each VDG will be provided a gun, 100 rounds of ammunitions. Need of VDC. What is the need of VDC? The militancy began in Kashmir in the 1990s has spread to the adjoining Doda district by the mid 1990s. The demand for arming civilian population first arose after the massacre of 13 people in Kishtwar in 1993. As the killing increased, prompting the migration of Hindus from the villages to the nearby towns, the Home Ministry in 1995 decided to set up the VDCs. So exactly in the mid of 1990s, VDCs were set up in the erstwhile Doda district. Has VDC contributed in the fight against terrorism? Was it successful? We'll see. During the peak of militancy in most parts of Jammu and Kashmir, the VDCs played a significant role in combating militancy. They were the most feared armed groups among the militants in areas where poor road networks delayed the arrival of security forces. They were the most feared. So definitely we can say that it had a positive impact. The villagers, well versed with the local topography, averted many militant attacks and helped in their capture and killings. So we can safely say that VDCs were kind of successful. Is there any difference between VDC and VDG? VDG is the new VDC, we can say. Both VDG and VDC is a group of civilians provided guns and ammunition to tackle militants in case of attack until the arrival of security forces. The job is same. Okay. Under the new scheme, the persons leading the VDGs will be paid rupees 4,500 per month by the government, while others will get rupees 4,000 each. In the VDCs, only the special police officers leading them were provided a remuneration of 1,500 monthly. So this is the difference. Remuneration. SPOs basically were the lowest rank in J&K police. Special police officers, the lowest rank in J&K police. The VDGs will function under the direction of SP, SSP of the district concerned. So if you happen to become an SP or SSP in Jammu and Kashmir, so you might be directing various VDGs, because VDCs are not existing now. They have converted into VDGs. The new name is VDGs. So you might be dealing with them. Okay. The civilians who are having arms and ammunitions to deal with the militants in the valley. Now there are some controversies also attached with VDCs. Along with the successes, the VDCs also faced allegations of human rights violation and other crimes including murder, rape, extortions. As per official figures placed on the floor in the erstwhile J&K Legislative Assembly in 2016, 27,924 civilians were serving in 4248 VDCs across the state. After peace returned, there were demands from certain quarters to disband the VDCs in 2002. Over a period of time, the number of VDC members had dropped significantly, either because of their involvement in a criminal case or the government taking back their weapons once they turned 60. So this is basically, or these are the controversies attached with that. Why there is a demand for arming the citizens? Now here we have an interesting take. Actually, what happened when the Modi government came in 2014? The Modi government started to geopolitically sideline Pakistan in international forums. In international forums, we wanted to isolate Pakistan and we were very much successful in doing so. We were very much successful in creating this perception in the global community that Pakistan is sponsoring terrorism. Pakistan is into killing innocent Indians, and the world community started believing this as well. Now, Pakistan changed its strategy with respect to terrorism. There was a brief change in strategy by Pakistan, and the change in strategy was that those people stopped attacking the common people, the innocent Indians, and started attacking the military establishments, the military personnel. Terrorism didn't stop, but the targets were changed. Earlier, innocent people were targeted, now military establishments were targeted. And that is why in 2016 we had Uri, 2019 we had Pulwama. So, this was the change in tactics by the terrorists. Now in 2019 we abrogated Article 370, and when we abrogated Article 370, our claim over Jammu and Kashmir became more strengthened. Pakistan did have a problem with that, and Pakistan is still having a problem with that. That why did we abrogate or revoke Article 370 from Jammu and Kashmir? But now things have started to be better in Jammu and Kashmir. Development is coming. People are comparatively less fearless. They are comparatively less fearful, I would say. Not fearless, fearful. And the terrorist organizations, they have started to, believe this thing that our terror or our fear among the common public is vanishing. It is coming down. We have stopped attacking them. That is why this fear is coming down. So, since the past 1 year, that is 2022, they again reversed their strategy and they have started attacking the innocent civilians. We've seen multiple killings in the last year. Like a bank manager was killed, he was from UP or Bihar. Many school teachers have been targeted, many sarpanches have been targeted, a chemist owner have been targeted. So, multiple civilians have been killed. Now, this is again the shift in strategy. The militants believe that if we do this, our fear will be intact among the people, and that is very much important. And if fear is there, then it will make us easy to control them, to rule them. We had stopped attacking them, that is why the fear was coming down, and that was not in our favor. These people are becoming more inclined towards India. So, they started again targeting the civilians. And the last 1 year, as I mentioned, has witnessed many civilian killings. And another strategy which these terrorist organizations have adopted, that the hardcore terrorists are not involved into killing people. It is basically the pseudo terrorists, the local recruits, those who have just joined those terrorist outfits 5 months ago, 6 months ago. Those are involved into killing of people, killing of innocents. And this makes the situation difficult for Indian security agencies, because those people were not on our hit list. Those people who are committing the crimes right now, those are new recruits. These people are not on our hit list, or they not identified as terrorists by us. The ones who have been identified as terrorists by us are sitting in the backyard in POK and just giving instructions to the new recruits for carrying out these kind of killings. Now, that is the reason why these VDGs are being formed. New terrorists are coming to attack you, you attack them also. The VDGs will be formed for this purpose. We are also running an operation all out in Jammu and Kashmir. Our security forces are implementing this particular operation, and since 2021 we are running this operation, and our goal of this operation is to wipe out all the terrorist organizations and all the terrorists from India, from Jammu and Kashmir, and we have been successful in doing so till now. Although we have not been able to wipe it out completely, but yes, it has considerably come down. The terrorist presence or the militant activities, they have come down. A new form of militant activities in which the new recruits are killing innocent people, it has started to emerge, and for that also we are taking this action of VDGs. So this is basically the reason why VDGs are being formed, and this is all mentioned in this particular slide. Revival of attacks targeting minorities and non-locals, shift in strategy and new challenges in the front of security agencies, and we are all targeting it with VDGs. Okay. Pistols will be given, 100 rounds of ammunition will be given to those people. Okay. Now we come to the next piece of news, that is overuse of fertilizers in India. Now fertilizers, first of all, what are fertilizers? Fertilizers are inputs or are agricultural inputs which are intended to increase the productivity of the crop, which are intended to increase the yield of the crop. This is basically the work of fertilizers. Apart from fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides are also used. Pesticides keep the pests away, they kill the pests. Insecticides keep the insects away, they kill the insects. Sides means killing. So ultimately they are also contributing in increasing the agricultural productivity. But fertilizers, most importantly, are primarily used for increasing the agricultural productivity. Now what are fertilizers? You know that basically various nutrients are given to the plants or are given to the crops in artificial form, that is fertilizers, and when the crops get those nutrients, they are able to grow. They are able to grow faster, they are able to grow in huge numbers. Okay. So this is basically fertilizers. Now there is a spike in chemical fertilizer requirement in India. People are demanding more and more fertilizers. One major reason or one basic reason for this spike or for this increase in demand of fertilizers is that the government is giving a lot of subsidy on fertilizers, due to which those fertilizers are available at cheap rates to the farmers, and they buy them and they apply them in their fields, and irrationally they apply them. Okay. So this is there. According to the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, urea and diammonium phosphate DAP sales have increased recently, regardless of the rise or fall in the global fertilizer prices. Actually, global fertilizer prices have gone up. To manufacture fertilizers or to generate fertilizers, to manufacture actually fertilizers, natural gas is used, and natural gas has become expensive. As a result, the fertilizers have become expensive all over the world. So irrespective of this fact that the fertilizer price is increasing or decreasing, consumption is increasing in India. Consumption is increasing of fertilizer, demand of fertilizers is increasing. The basic reason, government is providing subsidy on it. So why to worry? You take that. But the subsidy burden on the government is increasing day by day. Actually, fertilizer subsidy burden has increased by almost 39% from 2020-21 to 2021-22, which is alarming for us. More than 2 lakh crore, somewhere between 2 to 3 lakh crore subsidy on fertilizers is paid by the government. This is the subsidy burden with respect to fertilizers on the government, 2 to 3 lakh crore rupees, and which contributes in widening the fiscal deficit of the country. Okay. So this news piece will be dealing with that. Okay. Global fertilizer prices skyrocketed, means it shot up in the run up to and after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. in February 2022, but have since dropped significantly. They have dropped after that, but they for a very I would say considerable amount of period, they this fertilizer prices were increased. Now, if I see this particular chart, urea demand 356.53 metric tons. This is of 2021-22, and the blue bar you see is of 2017-18. Blue bar 2017-18, 2021-22 is this orange bar which you see. So, urea's demand has gone up, DAP's demand have gone up. DAP is diammonium phosphate. MOP stands for muriate of potash. Okay. Its demand has also gone up, and NPKS means nitrogen, phosphorus, potash and sulfur. Okay. Its demand has also gone up. If I talk about the total demand, there is an increase of 21.07%. Okay. 528.86 million metric tons or lakh metric tons was the total fertilizer demand of India in 2016-17, and which has gone up to 640.27 lakh tons. So, this is basically the increase in demand of fertilizers. Now, fertilizer use in India. The fertilizer industry in India are substances that provide one or more of the chemicals required for plant growth. These are the chemicals which are required for plant growth, and plants, obviously crops, grow with the help of these. As per industry experts, there are 16 elements which are necessary for plant growth. Out of these 16 elements, 9 elements are required in large quantities. Those are major elements and are termed as primary and secondary, while the other 7 are needed in smaller amounts. Those are termed as minor elements. Nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium are known as primary plant nutrients. Nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, these are called as NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Calcium, magnesium and sulfur are secondary nutrients. Iron, manganese, copper, zinc, boron, molybdenum and chlorine are trace elements or micronutrients. Now, the primary objective of fertilizer industry is to ensure the inflow of both primary and secondary elements. Means these two elements, NPK plus calcium, magnesium and sulfur. Primary objective of fertilizer industry is that these nutrients should be provided to the plants at least. Micronutrients are not considered much, and thus subsidies on those micronutrient fertilizers is also not available or very less available. But major of the subsidies is there on the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, NPKS fertilizers, primary and secondary fertilizers, and out of the primary and secondary, primary fertilizers attract more subsidy, and wherever there is more subsidy, those fertilizers only will be applied by the farmers, and the farmers forget to apply these micronutrients because there is no subsidy or very less subsidy here, and this creates an imbalanced situation in the soil health, which deteriorates the soil quality, which also deteriorates the crop quality. Okay. So, this is a major factor. Now, a solution which comes to my mind is that if subsidy has to be given, it has to be given on all. You reduce the subsidy on primary and secondary and you introduce subsidy on tertiary or micronutrients also. But yes, farming community, they will not like it, and majority of our workforce is employed in agriculture and allied activities. So, there is this dilemma in front of the government. The primary objective of fertilizer industry is to do that. However, the sharp increase in overall fertilizer requirement in the country during the last 5 years have resulted in soil nutrient imbalances. As I told you that there is an imbalance in the soil nutrients, which has impacted the soil quality. Now, inorganic or chemical fertilizers, if I talk about them, these fertilizers are usually derived from chemical compounds like potassium chloride, ammonium phosphates and ammonium nitrate. the requirement of 4 most used chemical fertilizers, that is urea, DAP, MOP, MOP stands for muriate of potash, and NPKs, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium and sulfur, S stands for sulfur, in the country increased by 21%. Urea has 46% of nitrogen, while DAP contains 46% of phosphorus plus 18% of nitrogen. MOP has 60% potassium. Now, reasons for increased urea and DAP consumption. Urea and DAP consumption, these are basically primary fertilizers only or primary nutrients only. One such reason is high subsidy on urea, and that is why the demand is increasing. And this high price or I would say high subsidy on urea and other primary nutrients has created a problem, and that leads us to our next topic, that is fertilizer subsidy. Rising contracted gas prices following the Ukraine war, the central government is discussing a mechanism to ensure better prices for fertilizer plants. What are fertilizers? Are agriculture inputs which enhance the productivity of the crops. This can be synthetic, means chemical based, or organic also. Organic are natural ones. Now, if I talk about the subsidy, the farmers buy fertilizers at MRPs. Farmers, they are buying fertilizers at MRP, that is maximum retail price, below their normal supply and demand based market rates or what it costs to produce them. Now, these MRPs are less than the actual price. The farmers are buying at MRPs, means subsidy has already been provided. Now, MRP of neem coated urea, for instance, I have given this example also, is fixed by the government at rupees 5922.22 per ton, means this is the MRP of neem coated urea, 5922.22 per ton, whereas price payable to domestic manufacturers and importers come around 23,000 per ton. 23,000 per ton is the actual price and 5922.22 per ton is the MRP. MRP is less than the actual price, and the difference 23,000 minus 5922 is actually the subsidy provided by the government, and that subsidy is provided to the manufacturers directly in their bank accounts, so that the manufacturers get that money from the government and they release the fertilizers at reduced MRPs. The manufacturers are getting the actual money, they are getting this much, 23,000 per ton, but they are rolling it out at reduced MRPs in the market, and the difference is borne by the government in the form of subsidy. So, see how much subsidy is given. The difference, which varies according to plant wise production cost and import price, is footed by the center as subsidy. How is the subsidy paid? The subsidy goes to the fertilizer companies, although its ultimate beneficiary is the farmer who pays the MRPs, which is less than the market determined rates. Under DBT, that is direct benefits transfer scheme, subsidy payment to the companies would happen only after actual sales to farmers by retailers. Now, each retailer now has a point of sale machine linked to the Department of Fertilizers e-Urvarak DBT portal. Now, that subsidy will be released to the factories only when that fertilizer is being utilized by the farmers. It is being consumed by the farmers. And how do we come to know that farmers is buying it? Now, for every sale purchase to the farmers on retail counters, it has to be it has to be noted down, or it has to be punched in this e-Urvarak portal. The e-Urvarak portal will now give information to the government, acha, this fertilizer has been consumed, you give this much subsidy to that particular fertilizer manufacturing company. Now, anybody buying subsidized fertilizers is required to furnish his or Aadhaar or unique identity card or Kisan credit card number, and only upon the sale getting registered on the e-Urvarak platform can a company claim the subsidy. Government schemes for fertilizers. There are various schemes by the government for fertilizers. First was this new investment policy 2012, which came into existence in January 2013 with the main objective to facilitate fresh investment, make India self-reliant and reduce import dependency in urea sector. Yes, we are dependent upon China for fertilizers also, in which we saw in the previous section where we were discussing in trade with China that what items we import from China. Next is neem coated urea, which has a coating of neem, okay, and it is called as neem coated urea. The Department of Fertilizers had made it mandatory for all the domestic producers to produce 100% urea as neem coated urea. Now, benefits of neem coated urea: first is slow down the process of nitrification of urea. When it is slowed down, when this neem coating slows it down, the nitrification process of urea, then the requirement or the demand of urea will increase, because a single grain of urea or a particular, I would say, weight of urea will do the trick in which earlier non-neem coated urea used to do, because it will be present for a larger type. The yields were enhanced and decreased urea requirement, hence the money was saved. Next is new urea policy 2015 was released in May 2015. The policy seeks to increase indigenous urea production, promote energy efficiency in urea production and reduce subsidy burden on the central government. These were the objectives of this. And last is nutrient based subsidy scheme, nutrient based, in which we identified NPKs, these nutrients, and we were giving subsidy to those farmers on buying those fertilizers who were buying all of these in proper proportion, so that we were able to give a balanced nutrient to the soil. Okay, because farmers, if they are having more subsidy on urea, let's suppose, and urea has nitrogen component only, okay, then the farmer will buy urea only and apply. Farmers are not that much aware, and these elements or these nutrients like potassium or phosphorus or sulfur, they were not applied by the farmers. So we released this kind of subsidy scheme, in which it was like nutrient based subsidy scheme, in which we were providing subsidy on all the nutrients, and it was a condition set by the government that all these nutrients should be taken by the farmers, or all these fertilizers should be taken by the farmers in proper proportion, then only subsidies will be provided on all these, else subsidies will not be provided if the farmer would be focusing on only one of the nutrient. Okay, so this is there. Okay, we will cover one more topic and then we will take this break. This is MV Ganga Vilas. Now I will give you a task also, that in the break you have to find out the full form of this short form MV. What does it stand for? Recently, Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways stated that the Prime Minister of India will flag off the world's longest river cruise, MV Ganga Vilas, from Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh on 13th of January 2023, and this is the ship MV Ganga Vilas. It is a luxury cruise. This will cover a distance of more than 3200 kilometers across 27 river systems. It will not only go, or it will not only traverse in the Ganga river, it will traverse in multiple other river systems also. We will see in 5 states in India and Bangladesh. What are these 5 states? You need to find out. Okay. The 51 days cruise is planned with visits to 50 tourist spots, including World Heritage Sites, National Park, river ghats and major cities like Patna in Bihar, Sahibganj in Jharkhand, Kolkata in West Bengal, Dhaka in Bangladesh and Guwahati in Assam. Okay. So MV Ganga Vilas. So here is the answer: UP, the first state, then Bihar, the second state, then Jharkhand, the third state, West Bengal, the fourth state, and Assam is the fifth state. UPSC at times asks questions that through how many states will it go. Okay, so you need to be clear about that as well. And it will not only go in India, it will go in Bangladesh also. The MV Ganga Vilas vessel is 62 meters in length, 12 meters in width. It has 3 decks and 18 suites on board with a capacity of 36 tourists, with all the amenities to provide a memorable and luxurious experience for the tourists. The ship follows a sustainable principle at its core and is equipped with pollution free mechanisms and noise control techniques. Here is the route which MV Ganga Vilas will be following. It starts in Varanasi, then Gazipur, Patna, Bateshwar Sthan, Kolkata. Then it will pass through, this white portion is Bangladesh. Then Chilmari, it will enter into India, Guwahati. Majuli Island, it is basically the largest island on the largest riverine island of the world. Then Dibrugarh it will end, and this is Brahmaputra here. Okay. So this is the length, 3200 kilometers, 51 days the cruise time will take. Now we take a break and we will be completing the rest of the topics, and then after that we will be moving on to the doubt session. Thank you.